Chapter 8. "This is bullshit," Tony yelled out as he threw his fist down on the armrest of the big, comfortable leather recliner in my basement. It had been over 2 weeks since we held our service for Lizzie, and neither her aunt or uncle had been arrested. As far as we could tell, they hadn't even been investigated any further. Anger had been rising up in us all, but it was Tony who was the first to lose control of his emotions. This didn't surprise us in the slightest. "What?" I asked, knowing full well what he was thinking. "The cops aren't even going to do anything, are they?" Tony asked us, knowing that neither Dill nor myself had a substantial answer for him. "It doesn't look like it," Dill answered back. They both looked at me for solidarity, which I had no choice but to give them. I shook my head to let them know that I also didn't expect the police to follow up on the case. They had originally labeled it a suicide, and it didn't look like they were on the verge of changing their minds. "What are we supposed to do?" I asked my friends, but only expected an answer from Tony. "I don't know," was the answer I received from him, and in all honesty, it was the one I was expecting. We all sat there in our impotent rage, with all the power that 3 high school-aged teen boys could have. This was almost 0 power, to be exact. This made us even more angry, knowing that we couldn't do anything to avenge our poor Lizzie. "We could just go talk to the police and ask," Dill suggested out of nowhere. "You can't just go ask the police if they're investigating someone," Tony informed him. "Why not?" Dill asked us, confused. "There has to be laws that prevent them from revealing information on an ongoing case," Tony stated, but with his confidence on the fact shaky at best. "Actually, Dill, you might be onto something," I began as an idea hit me. "They may not be able to give us information about an ongoing investigation, but they should be able to tell us if it is actually still ongoing." Tony tried to answer back to that, but couldn't form a sentence. He was confused and kind of excited that we could finally do something, and something is what we did. We wasted no time in getting out of the house and made our way to the police station we had originally gone to when we had found out Lizzie was being abused and was scared for her safety. The station we visited and led to Lizzie's death. It was here that we had found that the case was in fact closed, and that it was suicide. That was what they planned to leave as the cause of death. Tony, of course, started to cause a scene as I pleaded with the man behind the desk to do something to help us. All of the ruckus we were causing drew the attention of multiple officers, including Detective Parham, who recognized us and quickly approached. "Hey guys, what's going on?" he asked us with concern in his voice. "I got this, Carl. Don't worry about it." He waved off the man behind the desk as he led us toward his office. "How can you call Lizzie's death a suicide?" Tony asked him angrily. Detective Parham took a moment and a large breath before trying to both answer and console us in our time of grief. "I'm sorry, guys, and I know you're hurting, but your friend was found with enough painkillers in her body to kill 3 people. There was nothing they could do but label it a suicide," he explained. "Do you guys have any reason to believe it wasn't?" "Yeah," Tony blurted out. "How about the aunt and uncle we originally told you about?" They abused her on a normal basis and weren't even investigated for a death at all. How does that make sense? We investigated the aunt and uncle when you told us about the abuse, and we looked into them a little bit when your friend died, but couldn't find any hard evidence in either case, Param explained to us. What about the bruises and stuff all over her body? I asked, knowing that all of the evidence of her abuse wouldn't have been gone in the days between her yelling at us and her dying. How do you know about those? He asked. We were her friends, Tony jumped in, and told you that we knew about her abuse. After you went to check in on her, I started again. She came to visit us and was covered in so many bruises and cuts. Why didn't you contact me? Param questioned with concern. I wanted to, but after what happened the first time, I was scared. I answered back. Trust me, I have so much regret that we didn't. Param just nodded. I couldn't tell what he was thinking as he did so. Was it that he agreed with my fear, or that just understood my train of thought? Didn't really matter. How did that not point to her being murdered? Dill asked. I'm not really supposed to tell you boys this. Param leaned in closer to us after taking a deep breath and looking toward the window for a second. But they are being investigated for her abuse. So they will go to prison for her death? Yeah. Param let out a little smile. I'm hoping to get them put away for a few extra years for proving that her abuse led to her suicide. Suicide? Tony questioned Param while I spoke at the same time. A few years, was what I said. Yes, guys, Param confirmed. Everything pointed to suicide, but I'm going to do my best while working with the officers on the case to get them as many years behind bars as we can. But it wasn't suicide, Tony exclaimed. And even if it was, shouldn't they get life behind bars for driving her to doing it? I added. I'm sorry, guys, but that's not really how it works. Param began to explain. We can't send them away for murder unless we can prove they had a direct hand in her death. But we can find enough on them to see them put behind bars, he stated, while trying to force a smile to his face. While I could tell he was trying his best to give us some sort of closure on what had happened, it gave us nothing at all. All it did was let us know we couldn't even rely on the one police officer we knew to help us. There was more to this conversation, but I don't really remember the details, and it led us nowhere anyway. After speaking with Detective Param, we headed back to my basement. It was there that things took a turn. We stewed in our own anger for hours before Tony broke the silence. Unfortunately, it was Tony's idea this night that led to all of our actions I'm writing to tell you about. We can't let this go, he stated. But there's nothing we can do. The police are done investigating, I explained. I want to do something too, Dill chimed in. But it looks like we can't do anything at all. And with so much sadness, he continued into one more line that broke us. We couldn't help her in life, and we can't do anything for her in death. We're terrible friends. I remember almost crying when those words left his lips. It broke my heart all over, and the pain reigned over all of me. However, it had a very different effect on Tony. He broke out in fury and scared Dill and myself. Then we have to do their job, he almost screamed, and I was surprised not to hear from my mother or sister upstairs. How are we going to investigate anyone? I asked him. We aren't, he answered back. We're going to get them to confess. How do we do that? Dill probed. We find their house and make them confess, Tony answered back to our surprise. We can't just go to someone's house and force them to confess to a crime, I explained. Why not? Was all Tony came back with. There are multiple reasons. I tried once again to get the idea through to Tony. For one, we don't know where they live. And two, it is definitely against the law. We can do it anonymously. Excitement started to spread across Tony's face. They don't know us, and we can wear masks. We'll just get them to confess while we record them, and then anonymously post it online for all to see. He described the idea while holding his phone up to show us how we're going to pull off his plan. We still don't know where they live. I tried to plead with him to drop the idea of his. I do, Dill chimed in, and looked up at both of us, who were now standing and pacing the basement. What? We both asked in unison. Yeah, I found her address a couple of days after she came to see us with all the bruises. He went on. I was going to use it for us to go say we were sorry and make sure she was okay. But then she died. Dill, you son of a bitch, you, Tony said in such an excited tone that you'd be forgiven to forget that we were talking about avenging a dead friend. We can do this! I still don't think this is a good idea, I pleaded. I tried to fight them on the idea for a while, but since you're reading this now, you know I lost that fight in the end. The plan was to get masks and gloves, a couple of tools, and pick a night to pay them a visit. We were meant to ask them point blank at first, and use force only if they held out on us. It wasn't a great plan from the start, and it only got worse when it was put into action. Thank you for listening. I release new chapters every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you prefer to read, I do release all 3 chapters every Sunday on my Wordpress. If you know anybody else who might be interested in this story, please feel free to share.